From world-class beaches to year-round sunshine, abundant outdoor activities, and outstanding dining and entertainment options, Tampa Bay has something to offer every lifestyle. But let's be real, moving is never easy and can be downright terrifying, especially if you're relocating to a new town or state. I mean, you probably invested countless hours into videos just like this one and Googled everything from what are the best neighborhoods and schools to how far will I have to commute to live in a safe community that matches my ideal lifestyle, and ended up on the hurricanes, homeowners insurance, and alligator side of Florida living. And as someone who has made the move themselves, trust me, these are all great questions that you need to ask, because ultimately no one wants to end up making the wrong move and hating where you live. So if you've been considering moving to the Sunshine State but have concerns, grab a seat, because I'm sharing the most common mistakes people make when moving to Tampa Bay. And one of them is the mistake that will absolutely ruin your move. And if we've never met before, my name is Juan Alcala, and 6 years ago, my wife Kate and I sold almost everything we owned, packed up our family of 5, and headed 1,200 miles south here to the greater Tampa Bay area and have been loving it ever since. We've also helped over 100 families do the exact same thing. So if you have questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me and my team. All of my contact information is listed down below. There's even a link to my calendar, so you can schedule a time that's most convenient for you. We'll jump on Zoom, get those questions answered, and get you started with the process. Now, one of the first and most common mistakes that we tend to make when we're considering relocating is we typically try to pick the house first. You know, it's easy to jump online on Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com or whatever site you like to use and go in there and start home shopping. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I sell real estate for a living, and I still do this almost every night, me and my wife, because first of all, it's fun to get in there and see, what is inside of other people's homes. And then, imagine having either that in your home or, hey, this is a place we're considering moving to, just like you're going through right now. And is this the spot for us? But ultimately, that is kind of like putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, because while you do need a great house in order to make a great home, that process of selecting the right home also comes along with selecting the right community, right? How far are you gonna have to drive to work? What is, are you somebody who gets to work from home, or if that's the case, that's a huge blessing, but you still might have to take the kids to school every day, and that commute can really mess with your life. Shopping, amenities, all of these things contribute to, is this the right place? And by jumping ahead and starting to home shop before we've taken time to really kind of work through what is the ideal community for us, that is, like I said, we're putting the cart before the horse. And it's a great way to start looking at the market in general and saying, okay, here are my expectations of what I want in terms of fit and finish in a home, and here's the cost associated, here's the price of that house based upon what I'm seeing. Then when you determine what neighborhood you're gonna be in, that will really, give you a lot more clarity on the price. But this is what we typically see people do. And again, I know it's normal because we do it too. We start picking the house first, and that ultimately is something that needs to be put at the back of the shopping list. And today what you're gonna see is, as we go through this list, if you actually take it and you flip it around, that's going to be the ideal path. But people tend to do this whole thing backwards. And I wanna save you guys the time and frustration and make sure that you don't ruin that move. So make sure you stick around and you get this list. That way you can flip it around and do it the right way. The second most common mistake I see when people are relocating is we really underestimate our commute times, our drive times. And Tampa Bay and Florida as a whole, we've grown so much in population over the last 5, 10, 15 years that our traffic times are getting pretty congested depending on where you live. And I'm gonna give you an example of here in Tampa Bay where I live. When we moved here, Tampa had what I would consider pretty good traffic. Now, again, if you lived here at that time, 6 years ago, you'd probably say otherwise. But me moving from a major metro like Detroit metropolitan area where, traffic was congested, I traveled for work, so I would see places like Chicago and New York, in Denver, Colorado as an example, and out west, and those traffic times are so much more than we face here in the greater Tampa Bay area. However, it is starting to catch up here, and that's something you need to be aware of. Tampa is the 17th largest metro in the United States. Out of the top 50, we rank 17, and we're also starting to really climb that list in terms of drive times, your daily commutes. And like I said, if you have to drive to the office, this is another thing that people will do. They'll start looking for homes first. They'll find, cute homes or homes that they think fit their what they have in their mind, and they'll look at it on the map, right? You're looking at Google Maps and you're like, okay, well, Riverview's here and Wesley Chapel's here and Seminole or Clearwater's here, and here's Tampa. So that's about 45 minutes. And depending on what time of day you look at Google Maps, it could tell you it's 45 minutes. But in realistic drive times, in the greater Tampa Bay area, it could be significantly more, especially if you're having to do that morning commute or that afternoon commute, the drive home or the drive to work with everyone else at those peak driving hours. It can get brutal. I have clients who have moved here and said it takes them an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes on specific days to get home. Now, they are traveling all the way across the metro, but I've driven these roads with you guys, right? I'm out here showing you all these communities, and to drive from Parrish, Florida, to Clearwater, at 5:30 in the afternoon can absolutely take me an hour and a half, at peak drive time. So keep that in mind when you are looking at an area. Where are you going to live? Again, maybe you get to work from home, and that's a huge blessing. Congratulations. But are you taking your kids to private schools or to one of the STEM or magnet schools? Because remember, Florida is school of choice, so you don't necessarily have to put them in the public school that you have access to. But even our public school lines can be pretty long depending on how many students are in that school and the area that you live in. So ask great questions. When you connect with a real estate professional, like when you reach out to our teams, this is something we really focus on. How long do you want that commute to be? Because what I know a 45-minute drive time is versus what Google is, those are not always the same thing, and it's important to make sure you get those questions answered. Number 3 on our list is underestimating the cost of living. Now, there's a lot of different factors when it comes to what it costs to live in a specific area. And depending on where you're moving from, whether you're already local here in the greater Tampa Bay area or you're relocating from another area like the Pacific Northwest, the Northeast, or just out west or the Midwest for that matter, these things are going to look different, feel different, and most importantly, they're going to spend different. And there is a great tool. I point to this on almost every video, and I think it's so powerful. Go to Forbes.com and check out their cost of living calculator. What this will allow you to do is put in your current salary in the city that you currently live in, and then put in a city you're considering relocating to. So if you're going to move to Tampa, like where we live currently, let's say you live in Boston and Massachusetts, and you make $200,000 a year, you type that number in, and it'll show you how that $200,000 is going to spend here in Tampa. And in that example, you may end up getting a higher quality of life because your money spends better here. Now, you may be moving from an area like rural Mississippi where your money's not going to spend as good and it's not going to go as far every single month. So these things matter, right? Are you looking for a new home or a pre-owned home? And why I'm bringing this up is because when you buy a house, there's a difference between the price and the cost, right? The price is what you pay. The cost is what you pay every month, every year, right? That's what the continuous outflow is. And if you get a mortgage, we all know that you don't pay the asking price. You pay the asking price plus your mortgage over time, which usually is hundreds of thousands of dollars more if you finance a property for 30 years. But when it comes to a new home versus a previously owned home, a home that someone else has already lived in, there are other factors here, like the cost of insurance. Are you going to live close to the water? Do you prefer to live in the suburbs? These things will affect your insurance costs. They will affect your taxes. They will affect a lot of other considerations that will drive up or lower the cost of ownership and your cost of living. So keep that in mind. Our groceries here, we experienced probably a 10% to 15% increase on average for where we moved in Michigan, but my taxes are significantly lower on my property. I could get about half the home that I got here for the same amount of annual property taxes every single year. Now, my homeowner's insurance did double, but it's still within a reasonable range for what I would consider. We we live only about a mile away from the Gulf of Mexico. So most people would consider that a high risk, but we don't live in a flood zone or an evacuation zone. So those things lower our cost of ownership. And these are things that you definitely need to be aware of before you make that move. So don't underestimate the cost of living, because that is something that I see that bites people in the behind when we're on these meetings. They have one thing in mind, and when we start talking about numbers, it's kind of shell shock sometimes. Other times people are like completely good with it. Depends on where you're moving from. There are other areas where they're paying way more taxes than us. The properties cost more than ours do, and they feel like they're getting a huge win when they make that relocation. So just keep that in mind, ask great questions. And before we roll into the thing that I think ruins the most moves, I would love to know where you're watching from. If you're watching locally, let us know what city you're watching from. If you're watching us from anywhere else on this planet, please let us know what state or country you're watching from. I love connecting with this community. And also, YouTube has told me that over half of you have still yet to subscribe to this channel. So if you are getting value out of today's video, please don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit that like button too. It lets people know this is a great video and they should be watching it too. All right, so now we're on to number 4. And to me, this is the biggest mistake that I see people make over and over and over again. And this is the one that if you're going to ruin a move, it's gonna be with this simple mistake. Now, what am I talking about, right? Juan, you've been keeping me on pins and needles here. Where are we going with this? Well, ultimately, what you're trying to accomplish, and this is the thing I learned years ago, right? I'm in real estate, right? But I don't sell real estate. What I do is help people connect with their ideal lifestyle. And when you approach making a move with, hey, what community is most aligned with my ideal lifestyle? Meaning, what type of activities do they have? The type of shopping, the food, the dining, access to kids clubs and programs and education. Are you a beach baby? Do you prefer to live a more urban lifestyle, or are you a suburban fan? Like, these things matter. And when you start working on those things first, and then you start to look at, okay, this community has pickleball. I love pickleball, but I also love to paddleboard, and I don't want to be more than 20 minutes away from the water. That's really going to help you shape what communities are going to be the best fit for that ideal lifestyle you have in your mind. And now what we can do is start really working together and refining that search. Once you do that, the housing tends to become pretty clear. If you're a first-time home buyer, you have a lot of questions. But once you've moved once or twice, you know that the home is actually not the most important thing. And what do I mean by that? Because that's a pretty bold statement, right? And I'll share this with couples when we're on our Zoom call together. And I'll say to them, hey, if I handed you $3 million and I handed you $3 million, and I'll let both of you design your ideal home, and we put it in the wrong community, immediately they start shaking their head. I tell them the same thing. You'd probably end up hating it, and everybody shakes their head yes, right? But if we found you a great house in the ideal community, the one that has, the shopping centers you want. And what I mean, are you a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's person? Or are you a Winn-Dixie person? Do you prefer Sam's Club over Costco? Are you a Target XL fan? These things matter, right? They really impact the quality of people's lives. And that's just, we're talking about shopping, right? You start getting into, kids soccer or kids sports or your physical activities, right? Again, do you prefer to be near the beach? Do you want to walk on the beach every day? Well, if you do, moving out to the suburbs that are an hour and 10, hour and 20, sometimes an hour and 40 minutes away, that's not going to be your ideal lifestyle. As a matter of fact, that might be torture to you. So keep that in mind. When we start working with people, the first thing that we start talking about when we jump on our Zoom calls is, what is your ideal lifestyle? We usually spend about a majority of the call talking about those specific things, because once we know that, finding the house for us is the easiest part, because that's what we do on a day-on basis. But if we don't know what those important things are, or if you can't clearly identify or articulate them for yourselves, you're going to struggle, and ultimately you're going to move into a community and you might regret it. And no one, and I mean no one, wants to make a move twice. Moving sucks, y'all. Let's be real. The idea of moving sounds fun. Picking houses may even be fun, but let me tell you, There is nothing fun about moving itself. That is a lot of tedious work. You gotta throw stuff away, pick what you're taking, packing it all up, unpacking it. Ultimately, it becomes a huge strain on your time, your energy, and your resources. And let's be real, most people just don't love moving. And recapping those 4 things, right? Trying to pick a house first. What's your daily commute gonna look like if you're gonna have one? Underestimating the cost of living, and what does your ideal lifestyle look like? All of those things funnel into one spot, and that is, what is the quality of living going to be for where you live? And like I said from the very beginning of this, if you take this list and you flip it on its head, and we start with, what is your ideal lifestyle? Right? Let's talk about your budget. Let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish. Based upon what you have to work with, here are the communities that are most likely going to line up with what you shared with us or what you have in mind that match your budget, right? Then we start talking about commute times, right? How far are the schools going to be away? How far is it going to be to you to the office if you have to go to work? How far do you want to be away from the beach or the airport or downtown? These things matter. And then, and only then, do we focus on 3 beds, 2 baths, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, whatever it is, because ultimately you can get 4 walls and a roof anywhere in this country, but can you get your ideal lifestyle? Can you do it right the first time? That way it never has to happen again, because like we said, moving is one of the least fun activities I think anyone ever has to go through, the actual physical act of moving. And guys, I hope you've got tremendous value out of today. If you do have any questions, like I said, do not hesitate to reach out to me and my team. All of our contact information is in the description down below. Also, don't forget to tell me where you are watching from. Jump in my calendar, schedule a time, we'll answer all of your questions, get you started on the process. YouTube is gonna put 2 more videos up here in this series that is really gonna help you, make a qualified decision about what areas are best for you. That way we can help you make that right move. And until next time, go out and live that Tampa life.